storms the field, Kansas storms the field. Stay behind in the stands where you belong.
A panel of Louisiana sports experts giving you the hot takes all season long. Michael Cauble, Matt Moscona, and Shea Dixon. This is Sports Takeover.
Hey, good evening and welcome in. It is Sports Takeover with alongside Matt Moscona from ESPN Radio and Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger on 3.com. I'm Michael Cauble, and we are ready to bring you another season of taking over the airwaves here, at least in the evening times. Talk a lot of LSU football, obviously. That's the name of the game. The Tigers getting ready to start their season against Florida State this Sunday in Orlando, Florida. Of course, we will be there. We're excited to bring you the game right here on WBRZ. Guys, we've had all offseason to figure it out. What is this Tiger team going to look like here in year two under Brian Kelly? A lot of expectations, obviously, from the quarterback to the entire team to the coach. They had a lot of success last year. Matt, we'll start with you. How do they build upon it?
I think they're going to win the SEC and go to the college football playoff and win the national championship.
Do you really?
I do. Yeah, that's my pick.
I mean, certainly the ceiling is there, right? I mean, like they have a very high floor. But the potential, to do that is so difficult. What makes you
Every year I go into a season, I say who has the fewest amount of questions against the most manageable schedule. LSU gets Florida, Texas A&M, Auburn all at home. Tennessee rotates off. Missouri rotates on. You got a fifth-year senior starting quarterback. You got talent at every position. I had major questions with Alabama and Georgia this year. I think LSU is the best team in the conference. I think they win it, they go to the playoff.
Calling a shot right out of the gate. Shea, your thoughts on the Tigers year two? Doesn't have to be that lofty. We can start with just game one if you want. But
I agree with you. I say the floor is improvement, right? An improvement upon a year ago when they won 10 games was just missing out on a New Year's Six Bowl. So for me, the floor, a New Year's Six Bowl, that would put you knocking on the door maybe for the college football playoffs, depending on how the season goes. Maybe an SEC championship appearance, we'll see. But if you're at 9 or 10 wins at the end of this season, I think that's a New Year's Six Bowl, and for me, that would be improvement.
Improvement's the name of the game. It's kind of what Brian Kelly has said all along. He thinks they're still 1 year away in some of the conversations we've had with him talking about building their roster. But this roster is certainly loaded, and as you both have said, the steps they took last year, the improvement that they showed, all these guys have that one extra year of seasoning, and Coach Kelly feels like that will be beneficial and that they are a better team.
Overall, we're a smarter football team. We understand the systems, we understand the process, we understand the things necessary to become more consistent in everything that we do to be a championship football team. And that is, right down to the smallest of details. We've made improvements in the technical development of our football team, the tactical development. Physically, we're better. I think mentally, we're better as a football team. Now you got to go out and execute.
That they do, and they have to execute against a top 10 Florida State team in Orlando at Camping World Stadium, the place where they wrapped up the season last year with such an impressive bowl victory. Guys, talking about executing, I think it starts obviously with Jaden Daniels. He had such a big year in a transfer role. Now he has that time with Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, that time with the offensive line, an offensive line that's settled and isn't rotating positions throughout the first 6 games of the season, and clearly a talented wide receiving corps. Shea Dixon, what do you think about Jaden Daniels now in year two?
I think you've got to expect another jump. He made a jump from Arizona State to LSU. Think about that. He started in every college game he's ever been a part of, from Arizona State to now, and he upped his completion percentage in a big way. He was a 69% passer a year ago. He hits nearly 3,000 yards and obviously puts up some single-season record numbers when rushing touchdown total for a quarterback. If you can build on that, which I think Kelly has said, everybody's highlighted it this offseason, getting a little bit more aggressive, not being afraid to make those mistakes, and leaning on all the talent LSU has at the pass-catching position, receiver, tight end, I think that's where that next step comes.
Jay, you said it. Aggression is the name of the game. Coach Kelly talked about it last season. He's talking about it being the improvement that Jaden has made during this offseason.
What we've tried to do in that developmental process is think of 7-on-7 in every throw. Every throw is 4th down. So you got one chance here. And I think last year every throw was 1st and 10. So it was check down. It was, look for maybe the easiest completion out there. Throw it back shoulder on the tight end, even if he's covered. Push the ball down vertically. Let's go make a play down the field. And I think that development and his own mindset and the way he attacks things is probably where we've seen that growth.
Probably exactly what you want to hear out of the quarterback taking that next step, Matt. You know, we saw it all last year, and really Jaden getting aggressive at the end. I think that has to do with his comfort level. Do you see him taking that next step?
Maybe I'm a bit of an outlier. I think if Jaden Daniels was more aggressive a year ago, you have a 2008 Jarrett Lee situation. The reason LSU won 10 games is because Jaden Daniels was the offense for a chunk of the season. I mean, the first play of the year last year, they couldn't block anyone off the edge against Florida State. Jaden rips off a 25-yard run around left end. Like, until the offensive line solidified, the best play in the book was Jaden run.
Yeah.
I mean, dude ran for 900 yards. It was their best running back. So I think him protecting the football, managing himself within that offense is why they were successful. They averaged 35 a game last year. So, yes, you give him a better line, a consistent running game. We know they got weapons on the outside. He can't help but be better and more comfortable when you have time to throw and other options within the offense.
Certainly going to be a great quarterback battle this weekend when the Tigers take on Florida State. Look at the two quarterbacks. Jordan Travis from Florida State there on one side, Jaden Daniels on the other. Very similar in their passing attack, but it's when you get to the rushing game that really Jaden stepped up. More than 100 extra rushing attempts for Jaden over Jordan. But you see 7 rushing touchdowns for Jordan Travis, 11 for Jaden Daniels. So that is comparable when he's needed to get it into the end zone. All right, it's LSU, FSU coming this Sunday evening, 6:30 kickoff right here on WBRZ. We're breaking it down for the next half hour right here on Sports Takeover. Stick around.
Sports Takeover will return after these messages. Now, back to Sports Takeover.
They did much of the same of what I believe we did. They got better throughout the course of the year. They won some close games. You know, obviously they built their confidence, in what they were being asked to do and how they were asked to do it. And so, I mean, this is it's going to be a heck of a matchup.
That it will. Welcome back into Sports Takeover. Shea, Dixon, Matt Moscona joining us right now as we talk a little LSU Tiger football. And of course, guys, we kind of talked about the offense. Still a lot there that we didn't talk about, but that Tiger defense, I think, is going to be the key to this ball game. Florida State has a pretty potent offensive attack. Jordan Travis, as we already alluded to, a very skilled quarterback. One of the issues, that we're going to talk about and hear all week really is Mason Smith being out of this ball game. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but one of the stars that, this football team has stars on it. And I think it's funny, we go through press conferences and we're not asking about Jaden Daniels. We're not asking about Harold Perkins. I had to ask about Harold Perkins. Obviously, a new role this year, trying to play a little bit more linebacker and less athlete, I guess, was kind of the theme that I got out of Brian Kelly. Shea, we'll start with you. What are your expectations for Harold Perkins this season?
Look, Brian Kelly summed it up when he said, yes, Harold Perkins was disruptive a year ago, but he was primarily an edge rusher. And putting him at linebacker, now you're doing things, as he said, not only going after the quarterback, but running backs, tight ends. And for me, I look at this as a great thing because think of how many plays a guy like Tyrann Mathieu made just in the middle of the field, whether it was getting to a ball and ripping it out or, making a play and picking a pass off that you didn't see him coming on. Harold Perkins has those type of instincts. He is not a kid who can just get the quarterback. He's a guy who knows where the ball is at all times. I love this move.
When Brian was talking about, getting after the tight ends, getting after the running, I instantly thought of Tyrann. Matt, just your thoughts on Harold now as he kind of really tries to develop that full game.
I think you're turning him into Devin White, which was always the idea. Put him in the middle, but he can go anywhere. The thing that Brian Kelly said, I thought that was most impactful, was we are going to make an offense have to account for Harold. Where is Harold? You come to the line of scrimmage, and he's not necessarily just standing right there in the middle. So they're going to move him around, which was encouraging to hear because I think making him a prototype like Mike Backer, like Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, that's probably a mistake. But that queen piece on the chessboard that can start in the middle and move anywhere makes him versatile, and he's obviously really, really special.
Yeah, you're locking him in the middle. You're making him predictable. That's what LSU's trying to avoid. Brian Kelly said as much yesterday.
Well, I think you're going to see him make plays, all over the field. I mean, his plays came from mostly the perimeter. He was a perimeter player that, made a lot of his plays, getting after the quarterback. He's still going to get after the quarterback, but he's going to get after running backs and tight ends. And I think that's going to be exciting to watch. You're going to see a linebacker not a pass rush specialist. And so I'm excited to watch the development of Harold Perkins into that player that can impact the game, not just coming from the edge and harassing the quarterback, but from all facets and getting the ball loose and, impacting fumbles and big plays. I think it's going to be that kind of Harold Perkins.
And no doubt they're going to need him, certainly with some of the issues along the defensive front as they try to figure it out. Omar Speights, I think, is going to be critical to how much Harold can do. He's a serious dude, man. When we've interviewed Omar, he's a guy that's all about the football, all about the now. So I think that's going to be fun.
Your starting linebackers last year against Florida State were Mike Jones and Greg Penn. This year it's Omar Speights and Harold Perkins. Little bit of an improvement.
A little bit different. Perkins obviously didn't play at all last year.
Well, think too, this is what the transfer portal does for you. Omar Speights was a guy that's played 4 years of football at Oregon State. He's got nearly, 30-something starts under his belt, almost 40. That's in the top few of the team. So you bring that kind of experience in, like you said, couple it with Harold Perkins, you're in a much better spot than you were a year ago.
The spot that they're not great in is in the secondary. Certainly we understand what they have with the safety position with Major Burns and Greg Brooks, but along the corners it's going to be all new. And maybe an old name kind of working their way in to that mix. A spot that we didn't think we'd see Sage Ryan in is that actual outside corner. He's been working predominantly nickel. Matt, yesterday you asked Brian Kelly about Sage and his versatility, I guess. What were your hopes as trying to figure out what the question was?
Well, in the last scrimmage that we got to watch in Tiger Stadium, we saw Sage Ryan playing cornerback. So my curiosity was, are they just trying to develop depth there? Or are they seriously looking at Sage Ryan as a starter outside opposite Zy Alexander? And it looks like they're going to play him at corner. And I'm not so sure that's a great thing.
Brian Kelly had this answer speaking to Sage's versatility and their intent on using him.
We are going to use him both at the nickel and corner position. So he's been cross-trained. A lot of the technical work has been at corner because he knows the nickel position really well. But he's one of our fastest players. When we're talking about GPS speed, he's typically in the high 21 range, and he's topped out at 22. So he can run. He's smart. But I think the thing that has separated him is his ability to tackle in space.
Guys, it is going to be a work in progress. We saw Deuce Chestnut, who we thought was going to be the starting corner outside, not have that role in the one scrimmage that we got to see. Sage, as you said, did get in there and looks like he might be healthy. Shea, you had some thoughts?
I just think that if Matt's right, if this is a national championship team or has those aspirations in front of him, cornerback is the one thing that we're going to have to monitor. Because, look, they took for the second year in a row, because they only returned one scholarship cornerback, LaTerrence Welsh, who isn't a guy we're talking about right now, 4 guys out of the portal. That number got cut in half. J.K. Johnson's hurt. Denver Harris is running third team. Now you're down to just 2 guys as transfers, and one of them is now being replaced by Sage Ryan. So kudos to Zy Alexander for making the jump from Southeastern to now, but you have to have more than that.
You can spin it how you want. If you're running Sage Ryan at cornerback as he's entering his 3rd year of college, that's a problem.
We'll find out how big of a problem it is this Sunday. Jordan Travis is certainly looking to the outside of that passing attack to take advantage of some of those rookie cornerbacks here on this LSU Tiger team. When we come back, we're talking about Mason Smith, the suspension, his injury, all that after this.
Sports Takeover will return after these messages. Now, back to Sports Takeover.
Probably not. I mean, he probably would have been in that range. He's still not practicing. So at the level that he needs to be practicing for us to say that he would be, if I was in front of you today, he would probably be, questionable for this weekend.
Welcome back, everyone. Brian Kelly with his new and improved health status update, the injury report, something we haven't seen in college football. I do think it'll probably take shape. He didn't officially list Mason on that injury report, just a handful of guys that are going to be limited. Josh Williams, obviously, the running back position, I think was probably the most notable as far as being limited. But Mason Smith, interesting to find out that throughout all the suspension talk and the autograph session and the illegal benefits and the NCAA back and forth, LSU trying to potentially get a week 0 game in there. I would have loved that outside of Mason Smith. I would have just loved for them to get their feet wet, like the opportunity that Florida State had last year going into this game. But Mason Smith not even able to play. That was a little bit of a shocker to me, I'll say. I mean, certainly we saw him limited at practice, but I thought if he was cleared that he would have been in the ball game. Him not being in the game, Matt, what do you think it does for the Tiger defense?
Well, Florida State's offensive line is the most experienced returning offensive line in the country. So they have more starts collectively in games played than any offensive line in America. So, yes, you would love to have Mason Smith available for this football game. That said, I love what they did this offseason. Mekhi Wingo is a returning All-American. Jacobian Guillory's a 330-pound space eater. Jordan Jefferson, the West Virginia transfer, is a physical dude. I think they have supplemented that position really well. Like, the sum of the parts is not as great as the whole when it comes to Mason Smith, but the sum of the parts should be plenty good enough in this game and any game LSU plays this year. And
Brian Kelly said basically the same. Mike Norvell commenting on Mason Smith's absence.
One of the better defensive lines in the country, and obviously, it truly is unfortunate for that young man to miss this game. I mean, he's a special player.
Let's be clear. I mean, we would love for Mason Smith to be playing in this game. He's an outstanding football player, but we really are pleased with the growth and development of our defensive line.
It does make an impact because he is very, very impactful. But when you look at their defensive line, I mean, this is a deep group. This is one that's very talented. They know how to impact the quarterback.
Jefferson has been outstanding in camp. We think he's physical, plays really strong at the point of attack. Guillory's been outstanding. First step quickness is his ability to gain penetration. He's going to be a handful. And Lee has been probably one of the surprises. The transfer from Florida has probably been one of the surprises of camp for us.
Jalen Lee, certainly a name that we know here in Baton Rouge, former Live Oak Eagle. Shea Dixon, what is it going to take for this Tiger defensive front to kind of step up and answer the questions that it might have in Mason's absence? And let's talk about the ends as well. Certainly, we haven't talked about them at all.
Yeah, I think that Matt hit the nail on the head here. You're still good enough on the defensive line to beat Florida State and a lot of other teams. Not having Mason Smith hurts, but it's not a game killer. They did really well in the transfer portal. Now you're seeing guys even like Lee emerge. So not only do you have a two deep, you've got guys on the third team that you feel like are good enough to step up and take more reps in games. But yes, with the defensive ends, that's one position I am very confident on. I look at a guy like Savion Jones. I think he's going to have a massive, massive season for LSU this year. Behind him, Paris Shand, another transfer who's played kind of a couple different spots. Quincy Wiggins out of some Madison Prep. And then we'll see what happens with Deshaun Womack, a five-star edge rusher who they signed, who was excellent in high school. Obviously missed spring ball recovering from a shoulder surgery, but now that he's back, does he get in the mix at some point?
Womack's a name that Shea told us all about last year right here on Sports Takeover. I don't know why my phone loved to have the musical accompaniment for you, but
nice background music.
Finish your thought there. Hey, we're going to finish this show right after this short break.
Sports Takeover will return after these messages. Now, back to Sports Takeover.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. Matt Moscona, Shea Dixon joining us. Matt, let's talk about your game day routine, where people can find you, hear your thoughts. I know you have a full slate planned, as you always do.
Eagle 98.1 game day begins 5 hours prior to kickoff, and then, of course, we got post-game. T-Bob and I do whiskey and wine. So it's an NSFW stream show. Yeah. Understand it's adult language. We're at Don Juan Cigar Bar. It's a great spot.
It's not for kids,
it's
but it is
not
a lot
for
of
your
fun.
kids unless if you're a degenerate parent.
And if you really want to get down and dirty and talk Tiger football, that's the place to do it because, yes, all the thoughts are going to come out, both good and bad. It's a treat. You should watch it if you can. And Shea Dixon, as far as your game day plans.
Yeah, I usually try to get work done after the game, but find myself just watching whiskey and wine, which is the issue. Look, I'll be on Eagle 98.1. We have our recruiting segment every weekend. I'll be on the Bengal Tiger on 3, chatting with folks about the game, and then we'll have a lot of recruiting updates because now that football season is beginning, the dead period ends, and recruits are taking in games. LSU and Florida State will have some kids at this game.
And Sunday is when, like, the big day for you guys as far as visits and wraps and those kinds of things,
yes,
right?
So come Monday of this week, Labor Day, then we'll be breaking it all down.
Good catch. That's right. LSU, FSU. Let's take a look at it one more time. Sunday night kickoff, as Shea so aptly reminded me, a 6:30 kick right here on WBRZ. Matt Trent and myself will be making the trek to Central Florida here soon enough, hoping that all the storms and rain is out of the way so that they have a great football game there in Camping World Stadium. For Matt and Shea, thanks for joining us. We'll be back here every Tuesday night. We hope you join us then.